Hello, it's Paul, the Ripples guy. I am so excited that you are listening to this podcast or maybe watching the video. And this is a little bit of a different format than we usually do here at the Ripples podcast because I'm here with my friend Pidge, and she and I are going to try an experiment today with some questions that we've been wanting to do. So if you're listening to this, there's no pebble, boulder, or ponder. There's just going to be a whole bunch of questions. Hi, Pidge.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, so to set this up, what we have done is kind of inspired, I think, by a couple of things. The Proust questionnaire, which I really don't like. Do you know anything about
Yeah.
it?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I read. We have a subscription to Vanity Fair, and it's at the back of every Vanity Fair magazine. And I love stuff like that. I also used to watch Inside the Actors Studio, and they would do something called the Pivot questionnaire, which somewhat similar,
Yes.
based on a French broadcaster. So I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I sometimes would pretend I was on that show, and
Ah,
like when I'm driving or something, and answer all the questions in my head. So it's like, oh wow, now I get to do this live
yes.
with my dear
Ah,
friend Paul.
yes.
And
Yes.
so
And
that's
so I will tell people watching, I'm sure this will come up, but we've known each other since fifth grade. We were theater nerds together, and gosh, there were years when we weren't in touch, but now I don't think there are months when we're not in touch. And we kind of inspired by Inside the Actor Studio Proust questionnaire. I really had liked Minnie Driver's podcast that I think was inspired by the Proust questionnaire. And she came up with her 7 questions. So what we decided to do is each come up with a handful of questions, and we've decided to, except for the first question, which we're both going to answer, we'll go back and forth, and we'll take turns reading a question to the other, and we're just gonna see where this takes us.
yay.
Are you in?
I'm so in.
Okay. Well, the first question, Pidge, is who are you?
Who am I? And if you really knew me, you'd know like part of me wants to sing like 2 4 6 0 1 because we're both musical theater nerds.
Who am
That's
I? Yes, absolutely.
exactly.
I'm in.
Um, or like chorus line, who am I anyway? Am
Am
I
I my
my resume?
resume? Yes.
And then like another part of me was like, well, what is identity anyway? Like I'm a
Nope.
student. Well, I'll start with that. Like I'm a student of Buddhism. I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist, but I really have appreciated Buddhist teachings and
Hmm.
Buddhist meditation practices. Um, and so that's something that's important to me at this
Hmm.
point in my life. But and so as part of that, it's like, oh, how I identified am I with certain roles, da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a rabbit hole. But so I'm gonna answer the question, but just so you know me,
Yes.
that's one of the things
Yes.
that goes on
Sure.
Planet Pidge in my mind when I think about answering the question, who are you?
Yes.
But in the sort of everyday terms, I'm a woman who lives in Pacifica, California, with my husband Dave, and I have had many jobs in my life. I've been a waiter, I've been a admin, I've been a teacher, um, and I've been an actor and a musician and a singer. And for the last 30 years, I have made a living by working in corporate America, mostly in the communications field. And I'm from Carbondale, Illinois, originally, which is where you and
Woohoo!
I met in the fifth grade, many, many years ago. And yeah, who am I? I'm an eternal student, I would say. I'm very interested in personal growth. I'm an Enneagram nerd. If you know the Enneagram, I'm a 2. Specifically, I'm a 1-to-1 dominant 2 on Myers-Briggs. I'm an ENFJ. I'm a Leo on the astrology, but I have Moon in Capricorn and Virgo rising. So just so you know, that Leo fire gets a little balanced by Earth. Yeah, I like if this were my resume, you'd see that I'm a Jeopardy champion. I was on Jeopardy in 2016. I won a couple of games. That's definitely like on my highlight reel.
Hmm.
Um, I I used to do a lot of solo theater. I'm still a creative writer and singer, but I'm not doing anything out in public, but I think I'll always be a performer. Like that's even if only I know that, I
Hmm.
I will always know that.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I think I think that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Excellent.
So who are you, Paul Wesselman?
I'm a Carbondale kid, just turned 58 years old. We were both born in 67, so we are I think we graduated June 12th. I don't know why if that's accurate, but
Oh,
that
I
means that if I'm right, 40 years ago and 2 days ago we graduated from high school.
wow.
And I make my living as a speaker and trainer, and I think that is a big part of my identity, especially because early on in my career, I started sending out these little ripples emails, and that sort of become my brand and my identity. And because I send these little ripples out every Monday that have two quotes and something to think about for the week, I do a lot of collecting of quotes and thinking about what I want to think about for the week. And I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I spent 20 years in Wisconsin. I often tell people my body lives in Ohio. My heart lives in Wisconsin still, and my spirit lives in the Colorado Rockies, where I like to go and be by myself every once in a while. And I've been partnered with Jamie for 10 years, and my longest relationship before that was 10 months. And so it still freaks me out that we just made a decade together. And he and I have been shacked up together here at Markleman Manor, the combination of our two last names. We call it Markleman Manor for 7 years. And I have been friends with Pidge since fifth grade, and the most recent iteration of our friendship has involved uh, these epic phone calls that last. I think our record is what's our record?
I think 6 hours is the
6 hours.
record.
We made it just past 6 hours. And that didn't even, I don't even think we were completely out of steam yet. Like we still had some topics on our list, and they regularly last 4 hours. And then we just had an epic adventure for the solar eclipse last year where she got to come to Ohio. Where do I live? And we went and we wanted the longest number of minutes we could with that eclipse. So we plotted out and we drove to the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and set up our little chairs and got to uh got to have three, I think it was like 3 minutes or just shy of 3 minutes.
No, I think it was more.
Oh, okay, was it?
I think it was almost 4 minutes.
Oh, okay. All I
Yeah.
remember that, I mean, it's not all I remember. There are so many amazing things about that day. But what I was glad because you pushed us to go to
Mm.
longer, and I didn't even know the difference between totality. Like I'm like, oh, it's 98.9% here in Cincinnati. You're like, no, 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 we have to go to, and I just remember there was enough time to look, make eye contact with you and look and process it, and then go back to having quiet awe at this thing going on. And it's a talk about a highlight reel for sure.
Yes. No, that's absolutely on my highlight reel. In
Yeah.
addition to the day before, where you treated me to the Cincinnati Zoo. I I'm an animal lover, and there's just I don't even remember how I knew about Fiona, the world famous baby hippo at the Cincinnati Zoo, but she's the smallest hippo ever born. She was premature to survive.
Right.
And somehow I found out about that, and I was watching every day how she was doing. And she's fine, she survived. She's 8 years old now, and she has a little brother, and there's a bloat of 4 hippos. And I just love these hippos. And my dear friend Paul sent me a stuffed Fiona hippo stuffed animal
Oh,
because he knows
yes.
I love stuffed animals, and that's one of my treasures. And then while I was in Ohio for the eclipse, I knew we were going to go to the zoo, but Paul and his partner Jamie had arranged this very special private visitation with the hippos, which just blew my socks off. It was
Yes.
just it was a moment. Well, it was more than a moment, but it was just awe and wonder, and I felt like a little kid again, and it was just so wonderful. So to have the eclipse and this glorious
Yes. Yes.
hippo
Yes.
experience back to back was,
Yes.
I didn't know I could have so much goodness and
Mm.
awe and
Yeah.
wonder in
Yeah.
my life in
And
one moment.
and I'm not somebody who needs pictures for special moments like that, but we have 248 pictures. They for the 5 or 6 minutes that the sort of pinnacle of the experience, they took click, 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 and they sent us every picture. And I think I picked out like 6 or 7 that I go look at in a folder. And there's a lot of tears. Like
Yes,
we're
there's a lot
boys.
of tears. Yes.
So
No,
good.
I and my friends at work know how much I have Fiona paraphernalia up in my cubicle at work.
Oh,
And one of my friends at work took one of the photos that I had shared with them and made this very special memento um,
oh, I didn't know that.
photo of me and Fiona looking at each
Oh,
other, and it sits on
yes.
my desk. So,
Very cool.
yes.
Well, this is cool. So at this rate,
We're gonna get like 3 questions.
we're gonna have three
Fabulous.
questions then. But this is great. I thank you for answering that. So
Yes.
so what's next?
So this, I think, is a perfect segue because I want to know, Paul Wesselman, my dear friend, what do you most value in friendship?
So if you knew me, you'd know I was an Eagle Scout. And so it's funny when you say that, what comes to mind is a best friend is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, because that's the 12 points of the Scout. Like, pop. And I certainly, when I teach interpersonal relationship stuff, the three key ingredients I talk about: respect and trust and positive regard, and a given, oodles of those three for sure. And I'm proud of the fact that I have a variety of friends, and you and I talk about meeting people where they're at. And I feel like I try to do that. And I will say that when I think of the folks that really are in the inner circle, that are the people I would be the first to call if I really needed something. Um, what jumps out on the list is not geography. Most of my super close friends aren't here in Cincinnati, but distant. But I think the lifelong learners, growth mindset folks who really are open to going, and I think ball tossers, when relationships, people who know how to toss the ball and also hold on to the ball. So in a conversation, I get to know them and they get to know me. Um, I think that's the main
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah.
All right, so it's my turn. And oh, Pidge, what's a small joy that you try to never skip?
Mm. So when I think of small joys, I think of this term glimmer that you taught me. You taught me that
Yes.
term. Yeah. And so a glimmer is yeah, it's just like this, it's a small joy. It's just a moment of wonder in our everyday world, not some big, not the eclipse, right? Like that's bigger than
Right.
glimmer, but just yeah, those small joys. And what immediately comes to mind is um so uh out in our front landscaping, and I live in the Bay Area of California, and so we have drought concerns and we have fire concerns. So don't have a lawn, and we have a lot of hardscape, and we have some rocks, that create sort of like the boundaries of our hardscape in our front area. And there's cracks in the, intentional cracks, like there's spaces in between.
Hmm.
and there's a little lizard who lives in one of the cracks of the hardscape. And when it's super sunny out and
Oh,
warm,
yes. Yes.
he'll come out, and
Yes.
I'll see him or her or them.
Right. Yes.
I don't want to misgender the little lizard. So, and I'm just so delighted when I see them, and when they come out and I see that, and I don't say it very loud because I don't want to scare them, because they really are like teeny tiny, like
Mm.
I don't know, 4 inches long maybe. And I say, hello, hello, little lizard. And it just brings me such joy. And then I'll go tell my husband, I saw my little lizard today. And he's genuine. He's like, oh, good. Like, yeah, it's just this
Ah,
moment of loveliness.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing up glimmer too, because I had confessed I had forgotten the term had come up and was a thing for me for a while, and I'd forgotten it. And the term glimmer is a glimmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay!
Yay. All right. So again, this is more than a glimmer. Like, I have had the great pleasure of seeing you speak in person, also on the interwebs, but I
Hmm.
have had the joy of seeing you speak at San Francisco State University and do your magic genius talking thing that you are so brilliant at. And I wonder, like, are there ever times like you have a walk-on song for that? Or even if you don't have an actual, I think they just played some, not random music, but
Yeah.
music. But like, like a baseball player coming to the plate, do you have a walk-up song or a walk-on song? Or if you were to have one, what would it
Yeah.
be? Like, what does that say about you?
So true, real talk.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you not know that my last gig they asked me for walk up music and I'd never had that before?
Oh my God.
So this is a coincidence. Like I didn't tell you the
Okay.
story,
I don't think you did, but we are of a certain age.
right?
We
So
don't remember everything all the time.
so
So,
Pidge, if
yes.
if you would have asked me this question before April, I
Yeah.
would have I would sort of know of what you meant by walk up song, and I would
Okay.
have had you like help me understand what that is, and literally I had a gig on April 23rd for NERSA, which I've spoken at many times, and but I hadn't for 10 years. And they're like, by the way, what's your walk-up song? I was the kickoff speaker, and I was like, I kind of know what that is because Jamie's workplace, a couple of their people won awards at events, and they had to have a walk-up song. But I had to Google it. And I'm like, oh, it comes from baseball. Okay, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh my God, what's my walk-up song? And it's funny because I turned to social media and sort of made a post and made a thing out of it. And so it's like I know the answer to this question because I just did it. And I came down to two finalists for me. And Walking on Sunshine, Katrina
Hmm.
and the Waves is a song that number one makes a lot of people's lists of an upbeat song that is just fun. And I, I feel like it captures my mood and it would be fun to I think it would be fun to walk on stage. So that was my almost one. And then Born This Way, Lady Gaga ended up
Hmm.
being the song. And I had him started, I think it was like 58 seconds in. So it was really the, boom part of it. And yeah. And so it definitely, it captured. And it's interesting because I had a couple people in the audience who came up to me to talk to me who suspected I was gay, thought I was gay, but didn't know if I was gay. And two different people said as soon as I heard that music, they're like, "And done." And I like that was a sort of coming out song and also a coming out song.
Yes. Oh, brilliant. I
Yes.
love that. I love that.
So that's cool if that was synchronicity, and that was cool if you remembered and forgot that that I just had the experience. Either way, good question, Pidge. Ooh, I like this question. Pidge, what is something true about you now that would have surprised a younger version of you?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Like, what's jumping to mind is that I really enjoy alone time. and I really enjoy the pleasure of my own company because that was not true when I was young. I always wanted to be with other people. I like being alone felt like a punishment. I wasn't an only kid, but I kind of was because my one sibling, my brother is 14 years older than I am. And I had older parents and they were kind of tired. So like I had a TV in my room when I was 9, which everybody
Yeah.
thought was cool. But it was just like, oh, okay, I have to go be by myself now because my parents want to, do their lives.
Right.
And, I think being a theater person, being an extrovert, I just always wanted to be with other people. And as I've gotten older, and I think it changed, like the big shift happened. I remember I was 37 because it was a few months after my dad died.
Okay.
And I decided I was going to do a marathon. I didn't raise money, but kind of in his honor, like just kind of like because he was an athlete and
Okay.
um, gymnastics coach, and I'm really not. I wouldn't consider myself an athlete. I mean, I exercise and that type of thing, but it was
Hmm.
like okay, and I was going to walk it because I'm not a runner. Well, to walk a marathon, like it takes a really long time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and and so I would go on these training walks, and this was like 2004, so it was before like I would have had to carry a disc man with me, with a bunch of
Oh,
CDs if I'd wanted music. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be with, just not listen to music. And I did have some friends who walked some of the longer training walks with me, which was really lovely. But like I had a training walk that was 20 miles and and so I think that kind of really was the turning point. And I learned how to befriend myself and
yes.
I learned how to enjoy my own company. And then around the same time, I became, not too long after that, I became a meditator.
Hmm.
And so I really started enjoying being with myself. So yeah, I think my young version, and now, I'm 57, I'm not quite 58, I'm 57. I crave solitude.
Crave. Yeah.
I crave it now. And my young self never would have believed that. So
Cool. We kind of decided we weren't going to each other answer the questions,
yeah,
and it's funny that I don't think I would have thought that how to answer this question, but for me, it is so true how much I crave, and that word crave is true for me too. And I think it is also true that it surprises me how much I crave it because, like you, I am this huge extrovert who loves bouncing energy off of people, and so that's interesting. Another thing we have in common,
that's right.
we're the best.
Oh, we are the best. You said we, right? You didn't say
Yes,
you.
we are the
Yeah,
best.
we
Yes.
are the best. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, most of the time nowadays like I want to practice humility
Hmm.
but here's an exception because we are the best. And so you know it's just true. But speaking of things in common, another thing we have in common is we are grown-up theater kids. We were,
Yes.
yes, and performers, and we've been on stage together and we've seen
Yes,
each
we
other
have.
on
Yes.
stage. And I just, as a fellow grown-up theater kid, I wonder, like, I know you still like to go to the theater, as do I. Like, what is a favorite theatrical, and I mean dramatic theatrical, not a film, not but a
Hmm.
live,
Hmm.
performance, theatrical experience that you've had as an audience member that has really, it's been a favorite or it's been
Hmm.
impactful or just
Hmm.
super magical. I would just love to know what one of those experiences is for you.
I would like to now perform a number from each of my favorite five experiences, starting with no.
Yeah.
Um, Phew. Um, it's interesting. There something comes to mind as a pinnacle experience that doesn't feel right to share here. It's interesting. It was a
Oh,
very precious and amazing experience. Number one, when I do talk about it, I love to tell the long version. And it's also so precious that I don't know if it's asking me to put it on a shelf for now. So I'm like going past that one. Um and Oh, I was sobbing in Billy Elliot. So,
Mm.
spoiler alert, if you're not somebody who likes knowing plot twists of musicals and you haven't seen the musical Billy Elliot, which is based on the movie Billy
Film.
Elliot,
Right.
um, which had some music in it, but the musical has all the music in it. There is a plot twist that is different, or I don't know if plot twist is the right term. There is a cool happening in the musical that is slightly different than what happens. Something that happens at the end of the movie, it happens in the middle of the musical,
Mm.
and yeah. So cover your ears now because I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. This young this boy who is becoming a dancer gets to have this experience of dancing with an older version of himself
Mm.
who who turns out to be this amazing dancer.
Mm.
And not only do they get to dance together, but at one moment, young Billy gets to fly around. And I there is a story I used to tell in my presentations that involved dreams I have of being able to fly, and and so that resonated with me. And having had some big challenges when I was younger, and playing around with the relationship between younger me and adult me has been part of my healing work. It's been subject of many pigeon Paul conversations over the years. And I very rarely, I don't get to go to Broadway, go to New York and see Broadway shows on Broadway very often. And I have chosen to see that three times on Broadway. Um, and they had to help me out of the theater. I think it was the second time I saw it because it was so emotional that I just was a wreck afterwards. And the ushers were trying to go home and close up, and I was like,
Aw.
and I'm not a big fan of people using cameras in theaters and recording stuff, and shame on you, you shouldn't do it. But I have found online
Mm.
there's a couple people that have recorded that actual scene, and I can go to pieces just hearing the music and watching this grainy from a distance
Aw.
footage.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah. I saw Billy Elliot in London, and yeah, and I can just like, I don't know, just as you're describing that, I can imagine you watching that and just
Yeah.
being I'm moved,
Yes.
imagining how moving that must have been for you. And to me, like that's the beauty of live theater, right? Like
Hmm.
get a little choked up. Like
Hmm.
it it can do that. It can do that for us. And I don't think there's anything quite like it. And I like film, I like TV, I like
Hmm.
watching, YouTube stuff, but there's something about being in a theater with other people, having this going on this, experiencing this story together and having all the emotions and the music and all of it that just it's just yeah, there's nothing quite like it.
You know, you know what's funny is I did not think I was going to tell that story to you just now. I was
Huh?
going to mention it, and then I was going
Huh.
to tell you a not that grand of an experience that involves you. It's kind of it's not that grand that it was sitting in a seat. But when
Oh, yes.
when I get to go to New York, one of the things I try to do is I want to see the right shows. So I reached out to my friend Pidge, who goes and sees lots of shows, and she suggested the show. Tony Winter 2 years. Shucked is the name of it.
Shucked.
Blanking. Yeah.
Yeah, shucked. Yes.
Shucked. And in part because she knows me well enough to know I like a certain kind of fun, happy, upbeat music. And she said, this is good. And because our first year of high school, if I remember this right, we were the only two freshmen with speaking roles.
Yes, I think that's right. Yes.
And so like there we were, and in high school, freshman bottom of at most you get put in the chorus, and it's not like we had big roles, but we had some lines, by goodness.
We did.
And she was my daughter. It was so fun. But anyway, it was Lil Abner, which is sort of hokey and
Yeah.
corny, if we will. And so this uh musical was too. And do I remember right that you hadn't seen it?
I hadn't seen it yet, but I really wanted to see it because I'd
Yes.
read about it and
Yes.
loosely based on Hee Haw, which was like a
Oh, that's right.
TV
Yep.
show in the
Yep.
60s and 70s that was like a corn pone version of Laugh-In, also a variety show. And but Lil Abner, I mean, it's a great parallel because Lil Abner was also very smart in a lot of ways. Like it's set in
That's right.
Dogpatch.
That's right.
These quote unquote hillbillies, which is a
Yes.
derogatory term, but
Yep.
there was also like political
Right.
commentary and
Yep.
all this other stuff. And the same is true like with Shucked.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
So
And
keep
so,
going, keep
so
going.
not
Yeah.
only did she convince me to go, she had to spend a half hour with me on the phone picking out the seat because she had all these tricks. And we were talking about when it's a musical and the dance. And I like being able to see people sweat. And she picked me out a seat. I snagged the ticket. And of course, I sent pictures from the seat and told her how excited. And then what happens is, was it 3 months later that you went?
It was January. I remember
Yeah.
we went in January. I went to see Shucked and I was able to book the exact same seat that Paul Wesselman had been
Yes.
sitting in to see
Yes.
Shucked.
Yes.
And yeah, so it that made it even more special. And
Yes.
yeah, because like we were sitting in the same seat and I went by myself because Dave was like, yeah, this is going to be dumb. I want to see it. A decision he regretted. And we are going to go see it when it's coming on tour to San
Yes.
Francisco. So we are going to go see it together. But so I was sitting next to somebody I didn't know,
Yeah.
but we just kept turning to each other and just like laughed
Yes.
because it was
Yes.
so funny. And we just kept turning to each other or like touching each other's arms and in shared that sort of collective effervescence experience. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for taking that tangent. Oh, good times. Pidge, when and or where do you feel most like yourself?
Mm, most like myself. Yeah, I think when I think of where, one of the things that jumps to mind is the when I'm near the ocean. So I live about probably about 2 miles as the crow flies from the ocean, 5 minutes driving from the Pacific Ocean. And I just love to walk by the ocean and just be near the ocean. I think it's a very grounding force to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just helps me to, yeah, just kind of settle into myself, be present, be here now, as you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there's that's a real shortcut for me to here now is being at the ocean.
Mm.
Um, but in terms of when, like I would say when I'm writing, like creative writing, journaling, there's something about the act of writing and when I'm writing longhand, like when it's coming, yeah, it's not so much true if I'm on the computer writing when I'm writing longhand because I do a lot of my creative writing longhand and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll edit it by putting it into the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also when I'm singing. I mean, I haven't
Mm.
performed in public in a long time, but I still love to sing and I started taking singing lessons again recently, partly because like I went through menopause a few years ago and my voice changed, which happened, like hormonal stuff happens.
Okay.
And so it's not quite the same voice. I don't have some of the high notes, but
Hmm.
I do have some low notes. But I wanted to like, okay, let me work with the voice that I have now. And I'd forgotten how much I love it. And when I sing, for if I'm working in voice lessons, I sing for about an hour at a time. And it just like it takes me into myself, it takes me into my body. It just like I feel like I'm in flow. It's a very spiritual experience for me. And I think the other time I would say is when I'm one-on-one with my husband Dave or like with you or
Mm-hmm.
very close dear friends who really know me, all of me, and
Mm-hmm.
accept and love all of me, and have known me at maybe at different times in my life, or at least at different times in my emotional life, right? Who've seen the sad days, the mad days, the scared days, the joyful days, just all of it. So yeah,
Mm.
that's what I would say.
I was glad to hear you say the word flow because I was thinking of Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow, and as you were saying that, I'm like, oh, it's got to be that flow feeling. And then you said, oh, yes,
Yes, it definitely is.
Yes.
That I've never, like, people talk about like an endorphin rush from working out, exercising. That has never, that's never happened for me. That has never been my experience. And I have that experience when I sing. Like there's just, it just opens up something and it does. It's like I can feel like that innate goodness in myself, that just innate humanness. And yeah, I feel at one with the universe and I feel very much myself.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so while we're talking about like singing or the arts,
Hmm.
I feel such a connection with you around the arts because we, again, our shared history of theater, but we also love to talk about what we're listening to, what we're
Hmm.
watching,
Yep.
all of that. And we're both like people who um are dedicated to working on our emotional lives and what it means to be fully human and how we work with emotions. And so to me, there's a very strong connection. So I'm wondering, like, if you're feeling down, if it's like not one of your best days, and is there a song or a book or a TV show, something that, well, this is actually a two-parter. I want to know like what helps you feel better, like if you're needing a boost, but then also like what if like you need help processing something emotionally? Is there some piece of art, song, book, video, whatever, movie? Yeah, how does it make you feel? What's something that makes you feel better? And then what's something that really helps you move the emotion through to completion?
Hmm. My, I went to a couple places, and I think I want you to ask me the question again.
Okay. So, um, if if you're having some big feels,
Hmm.
what is an artistic experience, a song,
Okay. Yep.
etc.? What is something that helps you feel better?
Hmm.
And then what is
Hmm.
something that helps you move the emotion through to completion?
Hmm. The movie, it's interesting. The movie Stranger Than Fiction,
Mm,
I often have an urge to watch it when I'm sad, and I'm not sure why. I
mm,
don't, it's a movie that surprised me. It stars Will Ferrell. For a lot of people, just like with Jim Carrey, they know him as comedians. Some people bristle because he's a certain kind of comedian that a lot of people like, his characters. And he takes on a more serious role, and I don't know exactly what it does, but I always feel so much better afterwards. And the plot of the story involves the storyline is that he finds out he's possibly going to be dying soon. And the title is Stranger Than Fiction because what he finds out is that he appears to be, it seems like he's trapped in a story that's being written, a novel that's being written about him. And then he finds out in a very hilarious set that this author only writes novels where the main character dies at the end of the story.
mm,
And he chooses to he comes to know that this stranger than fiction thing is actually happening, and that it means that he's going to die, and that the choices he make, the decisions the things that he does, I think are just so powerful. And I cry at the end of the movie in ways that I just it surprises me. I think I'm going to run out of steam.
mm.
um so I think I'll use that for kind of want to come up with an answer for that other one, but
Yeah,
that
maybe there's,
yeah,
yeah.
it took me. Let's see. What is something that you let go of that made room for something better? What is something that you let go of that made room for something better?
Something I let go of that made room for something better. Yeah, what's coming is like certain relationships or friendships. Like I think I grew up believing once you were friends with somebody, you had to be friends with them forever. Forever and ever, no matter what. And I think one of the things I've learned in life is that not all friendships are meant to last. Some friendships, some relationships are for a season or a few years or so I've yeah, there's like Martha Beck, who's a life
Mm,
coach and podcaster and like personal growth person.
hmm
She talks about how, sometimes in life, if life is like a skyscraper, you get on the elevator and people get on and also people get off, right? And so sometimes the elevator might have more or less people on it depending on where you are in your own life's journey.
hmm
And so I think I used to like really cling to relationships and try to make friends, oh my God, we got to get this back on track. And what I've learned is no, sometimes like it's okay to let things go. And by letting certain friendships go that have kind of, reached their completion point, you're making room in your life
Yeah.
for new ones to
hmm
happen. And yeah, I mean, not, yeah, I can't imagine not having you in my life, right? Like that's not okay. That's not
True.
going to happen.
I was like, and is this an interesting way
Yeah.
to decide at the end of taping and scene? Paul, I just want to let you know this is our last conversation. It's been
Yes.
great. Yes.
Yes. No, no. And there, and I can, I've seen it. Like I've done
Sure.
big personal growth or like I'm not really doing theater anymore. And there were some friendships that were like theater, being a person in theater, a practitioner, like that was a requirement for that friendship to flourish and prosper.
hmm
And, when that stopped being a part of my life, some of those friendships did melt away. So that's what I would say. All right. What it's interesting. You were talking about Stranger Than Fiction and a character who thinks they're going to die. Like if you were in this moment, like
hmm
on your deathbed, or if you knew that that was true and you were looking back at your life, what do you what what would you say is like your legacy or even like maybe the greatest accomplishment or what's that big or small thing that you look back and go, yep, I was put here to do this and I did it. Yeah.
hmm hmm Um, it's it's funny that legacy stuff is a thing, and for some people it's a bigger thing than others. What's my legacy going to be? And I, for some reason, I take what's the accomplishment. Like I kind of go in that direction, and I don't think I'm the only person on the planet, but I've noticed compared to some other people that have talked about that, I don't have that drive to like what's the thing that people will remember after I'm gone. I'm not as and uh and for the time that I've sent out Ripples, this little weekly newsletter that I started sending out in January of '99, I think the fact that I think the one I queued up for Monday is 1,360 or something like that. So it
Hmm.
has this length of time. It has a consistency. I I am proud of the length of that and some of the feedback that I've gotten from people about how meaningful it's been. For some people, it's just over time, like having it. But there's been a handful of people that have told me um, just how significant you got me through a divorce when my son ended his life. Like some really big things that people have been able to say that Ripples was a little piece there, and um, And so I think I would say that there was also a conversation because of a Ripples card. Uh, which these little cards with inspirational quotes on them that I use in my presentations. And there was a young man, 25-year-old when I met him, that came up to me after a talk and asked me if I was affiliated with the Ripples Project because he had a Ripples card in his wallet that his girlfriend had given him or had
Wow.
allowed him to choose from a deck after a volunteer training I did a couple of years earlier, and he was in the middle of going through some really big stuff, cancer, really big and unfortunately repeated bouts of cancer. And a friendship arose out of that. And I had a conversation with him a few months before he passed away that I think is like the best helping work I've ever done in my life. And I think um, no one really like it. I mean, now some people know about that. Like, I don't, it's not something I talk about. It's not on my resume. It's not on my LinkedIn profile. And it was really precious. And it was the last time I got to talk to him. I think it just, I think that's something that is a good, like, sort of example of good work I've done that I hold as very precious.
Hmm.
So I think that's my answer.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't thought about it in a while. Um, let me, let's see. Are we doing okay? Can you
Yeah,
got a few more in them? Okay.
yeah.
We're getting through our list and we're doing good. It's a little longer than I thought it would be, but I don't care. It's good. If you're still listening, if we end up putting this on a podcast, sorry, this is a long issue, but we're extroverts.
That's right.
Um, Oh, I like this question. And I don't know how I would answer it. And since I don't have to, it's easy. But if you could spend a weekend in any fictional universe, like any a setting from a movie or a play or a song or some fictional universe that you've
Hmm.
heard of, listened to, something, what might what might that be?
Yeah. I think what first, that's interesting. It's funny because like my inner critic kind of popped up and said, "Oh, it should be something like Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings or, like I'm like, I don't know why that's happened. It's like
As my therapist Loretta
yeah,
would say, can you ask that part to step aside?
I can. I can. No, it's interesting. I took a songwriting class not that long ago, and the teacher had us. She gave us these little boxes and a little tiny post-it note, and she says, when the inner critic pipes up, write what they're saying on on this little post-it note, say thank you, and put it in this little
Love it.
box and put the
Love
lid
it.
on. So I'll do that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think like what's coming to me is like the newsroom of all of the President's Men, that film. It's from the 70s with Robert
Oh,
Redford and
yes.
Dustin Hoffman playing Woodward and Bernstein.
Yes.
That's one of those movies that anytime it's on TV and we still have cable. My husband Dave and I are like two of the last people on earth who still have cable. But and we have Turner Classic Movies, which is why we have cable.
Oh, that's
And
right.
yeah, and they'll frequently show it unedited, uninterrupted. And if it's on, like I don't have to, but I choose to sit
Yes.
down and watch
Yes.
it wherever it is.
Yes.
So I think I
Wow.
would love, and when I was young, like when I was young, I just loved like the idea of that and journalism. And, we're sort of barely old enough to remember Watergate actually happening, but I do remember watching some of the hearings with my mom.
Interesting. Interesting.
And so there was just something about it, and it just felt so important. And I just loved the energy of the newsroom. So yeah, that's what first comes to mind. And then I'm also like, I remember when I went to see The Big Chill. So that's a movie
Oh,
from the
yeah.
80s. Yeah. And I think, again, I think because friendships are so important in my life, there's this scene. It's a bunch of friends who are at a reunion because one of their friends died, and they're all staying at this, it's Kevin Kline's house, and he's married to Glenn Close, and all their friends are in their house and they get up and they're making food together in the kitchen, and it's got this great 60s soundtrack, like, old oldies. Now the music we grew up with is
Yeah.
oldies, but at the time, and
Yep.
it's just they're just like dancing in the kitchen.
Interesting. Huh.
So I would love to be at that weekend with
Oh,
those
yeah.
people. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. I feel like for the next set of questions, I'd want to know if you were going to do a big chill weekend, who would you invite? Of
Oh,
our either of our like our mutual friends, or just if you were going to collect people.
yeah.
That'll be a different that'll be a different question.
Yes.
Hey, did you before we go, I have to take this tangent and ask you,
Yes.
you did not we were not in honors government together in Mrs. Grimmer's honors government class.
We were not.
I took that class and we had to read All the President's Men.
Mm,
And I, so for me, it's actually the book more. I
mm,
just recently checked it out on, what do you call it, Libby, my
yeah.
library, and read it on my Kindle in 2 days because it had such a profound, because like you said, actual memories of Watergate are like this, but certainly we were living in the consequences of the post. And I remember when Jimmy Carter got elected, and then, the things that were growing out and how much our country needed to, and just to read how hard they had to work um, to find the truth and then to get the truth out there. That really had an impact on me. I think my inner justice warrior, I think that it grew out of
Yes.
there a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I have actually also read the book. It's a great book.
Mm,
And yeah, I don't know. Um, yeah.
that's awesome. All right. Wait, whose turn is it? I
It's
forgot.
my turn.
Oh, you're
It's
asking me
it's my turn.
to
Da
see
da
what I
da.
can do. Yes.
Okay. So this is a question about feedback because you and I were both personal growth aficionados, and I think
Yes.
done different types of learnings. And um, yeah, I think like having a good relationship with feedback. I don't know what a good relationship is, but like, being in relationship with feedback, I think is something
Hmm.
that's both important to both of us. So this is a
Yes.
two-parter.
Okay.
I'm not going to do what I did the last time. I'm going to ask the first part first,
Okay.
then I'll ask the second part
I
second.
and pl thank you, because I think my brain is too like well, and I'm like I don't know what to do. It's not you, it's me.
No, I think it's me, but it's okay. It's okay. It's kind of you. It's kind of you to say
Okay.
that it's you, but I really think it's me.
Okay.
So, what is the best bit of positive feedback, or you might even call it a compliment, but like
Hmm.
what's a favorite, maybe not the
Hmm.
best, but what's
Sure.
a favorite bit of positive feedback you've received in your life?
My favorite, because I do speaking and training, I have this kind of cool job where people clap for me at my job and sometimes get in the line afterwards to have an impact. I think the piece of feedback that I get repeatedly that is most precious to me is some version of you're so real, or you're so authentic, because a lot
Mm,
of folks in my job, I think they're either not authentic or they come across as and people don't sense that it's real. And to
mm,
be able to be an upbeat person who is a motivational speaker, and they feel like I'm practicing what I preach, and that I'm speaking from authenticity. um like that's just such a cool feeling. This When I was younger, I always looked young. This
mm,
does not happen to me now, but for many years, people were like, "Oh, you're a college student." I'm like, "No, I'm 30," and I was in my either late 20s or early 30s, and it was at a period where I was just becoming full time at doing this. Which is right before I started. So this, I would say I was 31, 32, and this woman comes up to me. And I will say I at that time was very self-conscious that I felt young to be this person in a room where sometimes I was one of the younger people. And this woman came up before and she goes, "Are you the keynote?" And I said, "Yeah, hi, I'm Paul." And I actually thought a different person was the keynote. Like I didn't take it as, but I remember she's like, "Are you the keynote?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm Paul." She goes, aren't you kind of young to be the person that we're going to listen to now? And
Mm.
I was just like, oh gosh. And I was like, and I it sort of came up with, well, some people, and I remember cringing after I said it. So get ready to cringe. I go, some people say I'm an old soul, or
Oh
I have an old soul. Like, and I was like, oh, that's cliche. La. And
no.
and then I realized, oh, she's judging me, and she's judging me about the thing that I judge myself. And now, holy crap. And a related thing for that for me is early on in my career, a lot of my audiences were either college students that I had worked with and have a master's degree in higher ed, or people who work with college students. And because I had done that job, and then when I was hanging out with teachers, the fact they were in the helping profession, like it was adjacent. And this audience and many of my audiences started being from the corporate world where I hadn't been like Pidge, where I had worked in an office. And so I felt, I think imposter syndrome was extra
Mhm.
loud.
Yeah.
And I somehow got on and did my thing, and it went really well. And there were a couple people that came up afterwards to talk to me, and then I saw this woman was kind of lingering, and after everyone else had left, she had tears in her eyes, and she walked up and she just shook my hand and she said through tears, "Ancient."
Aw.
And I took that to mean that she decided my soul was ancient, and the fact that I can remember a single word, ancient, just really, um, that was precious. And I was like, good for her for like finding the ability to see something good in me. And the fact that we connected enough for tears was,
Mm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
you're welcome. Was
And
there a
then,
part two? No.
yeah, there's a
Okay.
part two. So this is a little bit the converse.
Okay.
What was a piece of feedback that you received somewhere in your life that was maybe initially hard to hear? Like maybe it was stung a little bit or a lot, but was ultimately really useful for your personal or professional growth?
Well, Pidge, I've never gotten any negative feedback because there's just really
You have.
um
I've given you some.
you're like, here, here,
Hold
Paul,
my
try.
hold my beer.
um Gosh, what comes to this isn't early on, somebody who was the president of a statewide chapter of speakers, somebody who was legendary in our field, was on the same docket as me, and had spoken before me and was getting ready to leave. She goes, I've got a half hour. Do you want me to stay and watch your session and give you some feedback? And her stuff didn't really sting. It was hard to hear. She said, you touch your glasses a lot and you step on your laughs. She says, you're funnier than you realize and you're stepping on them. And it was really, really helpful. And very coincidentally, the next speech I gave a week later, uh, somebody from a colleague who is sort of an up and comer had lived in the town and had come to see me speak and wanted to ask questions. And I had time to go out into the audience before and say, hey, could you do me a favor and make little hash marks every time I touch my glasses? And afterwards, he said, I think 45, like it was some ridiculous number. It was ridiculous. And I was like, ah. And then the next speech, I took my glasses off and then it was glaringly obvious. And it's funny because before we started rolling recording today, I told you about Nathan Lane, and I
Yes,
have not. Nathan Lane, what's the name of the show that he's?
mid-century modern.
Yeah, and it's on Hulu,
Maybe.
Disney, Hulu,
I
somewhere.
can't.
So it's
Not Disney.
somewhere. Google it
I
if you
think,
want to watch it. And
yeah.
my big complaint of him is he touches his glasses a lot. And apparently I've been needing to get back at somebody. I think I think the only thing that comes to mind that really was stinging it I got some feedback that I was a lot sometimes, that I
Mm,
was a lot. And
mm,
and um that I took it very personally, and I felt like it was a sort of a criticism of my whole being.
mm,
And as I sat with it and after I nursed some wounds for a while, um, it helped me appreciate that I bring a lot of energy into a room and sometimes it's overwhelming. And
Mm,
and gosh, was that 20 years ago? It was a long time ago. And I'm still a lot. And I feel
mhm,
like I've in many situations learned how to manage my energy
mm,
in relation to a space and into who I'm with. And heart
yeah.
stung, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got it.
Yeah. So is it like a calibration thing? Like now you have a sense of how to calibrate?
That's a
Is that,
great word. That's a
yeah.
really good word.
Yeah.
I
Not not
much
not
my,
that I've ever received the feedback that I'm a lot. I wouldn't know, but I'm an actor, so I'm
hypothetically, you
imagining.
can imagine.
I'm putting myself in your place and imagining. But
Yes.
yes.
Pidge, I think this is the last question.
Okay.
And I have kind of I have kind of two, and I'm not sure if I say A or B. Can you just give me
Oh, you want
a,
me to vote? Like which
A
one
or
I
B?
answer? Oh, okay. All right. Oh, good.
No, I'm just gonna
Oh, oh, oh,
pre
I have to choose
choice.
one? I
Yes.
have to choose one.
Sorry.
Okay.
Choose blind, please.
Um, well, I think I was such an A student. I think I have to choose A. An obnoxiously A student, I might add, if you really
I
want.
wish I had the same ACT score.
Ah, you wound me, Sarah.
Pidge, what
Yeah.
is something that you do that makes
Yes.
your people say, "Yep, that's so Pidge"?
Oh God. Um. uh, yeah, like there's so many ways to interpret that. Like if it was my husband, like he would say, oh, good, she's completely overthought every aspect of this thing that we're about to embark on. It's like, yep, that's my pitch. So,
Uh,
yeah, like, oh, I think I can be neurotic and I can overthink and overplan and just want to make sure that everybody's possible needs are taken care of. I will pack. I went on an outing with some of my work friends right after, well, COVID never really ended, but right after we came
yes,
back to the office, we were
right.
out of the office for 2 years and
Okay.
we went on an excursion together and we were going to the coast. And I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I bring, so I packed like 8 hats in my trunk in case somebody needed a hat, right? Because it might be sunny, whatever. And like we were going to eat lunch outside. And I'm like, who needs a hat? Who needs a hat? And it's like, Pidge, we're good. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's really sunny. Like, here's a hat. Take a hat. And yeah, so I think, and that's become a joke. Like when I do that or whenever anybody does that, it's like, okay, we don't need any hats. So I think that's one. But also like I think the thing, like I'm just kind of relentlessly human, right? I think that I will in any, I can go from a rant to tears to laughter,
Hmm.
like just very, very quickly, like the entire experience of like being human. And I think I do a lot of work, with myself, accepting myself, self-awareness, personal growth. And I think I also like I share it sort of in the way I show up. And so sometimes it's about, yep, I'm sad, I'm gonna cry. You can have
Hmm.
your experience with my
Hmm.
tears. I'll hold space for that, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna be real.
Hmm.
And also like, oh, here's this crazy thing. Here's this nutty thing I just did, right? Like, and I can have a sense of humor about it, not in I mean, I can be self-deprecating, but it's more like, oh my gosh, aren't we ridiculous? Aren't we just all
Yes. Yeah.
human? So
Mm.
I think that's what I would say. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, I think, Pitch, thank you so much for doing
Thank
this
you.
with
This
me.
was so much fun. I didn't have to like be in my car talking to myself. I could be on
Right? Yes.
talking to my dear friend Paul Wesselman,
I,
asking and answering questions.
yeah, and I will say it it is so exciting to be with you because you are fully human and
Mm.
there are so many times when our conversations make room for me to experience what you're talking about, and it makes for a rich conversation partner,
Mm,
and certainly for a growth partner, and both of us being lifelong learners. And if I'm remembering right, the eclipse was April of 24 and it's now June of 25. So it's been over
yeah,
a year since you
yes.
were here. And I want you to know that last week, Jamie and I used the last of a set of plastic bags you had brought here. And and so I can attest to the the fact that you come with lots of stuff. And it was funny because it was a different brand than we usually use. So we always every single time we pulled out a bag, it was like, oh, this is another one of Pidge's. I'm like, wow, we have a lot of these, and we just made it to the end, and we were sad because it was like, oh, Pidge was here.
Well, I'll come back and I'll overbuy and I'll bring
Please,
too much
please,
stuff
please,
and then
please
I'll
do.
live on in your house that
Please
way.
do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Well, for 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 those who are still with listening us 2 days later, thank you so much for making it to the end of this podcast. And let me know, reach out to me at Ripple's Guy and some social media and let me know, would you like to meet some more of my friends and I'll explore some other questions. Pidge, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you too, my dear friend Paul. I love you and I love us.
I love us and I love you too.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye.